A few years ago, if you had told me that we didn't have free speech in Australia, I would have probably laughed at you. But over the last few years, during the course of researching my PhD, I found a worrying trend of the Australian government abolishing free speech protections left, right and centre. During my research, I came across 4 laws that aim to undermine free speech in this country, to destroy freedom of the press, and to undermine various other Western legal rights and traditions. This is how Australians lost free speech. The first law is called the Public Service Act. This law bans public servants from talking about politics on public platforms, such as social media sites. If they do so, they risk getting fired. In some jurisdictions, even posting an emoji in response to an article runs the risk of getting you fired. This law affects over 2 million Australians. It affects government workers, teachers in public schools, government scientists, and workers in immigration detention and other government facilities. This has a chilling effect on Australian democracy. It means that the people most involved in policy and political decision-making cannot talk about politics. This has been reinforced by the 2019 Banerjee case. In the Banerjee decision, the High Court ruled that there is no freedom of speech protection for individuals or groups in the Australian Constitution. The second law is the Charities Act. The government has proposed changing the Charities Act to further regulate charities' communication on politics. This means, again, anyone working for a charity who talks on an online platform in a way that relates back to their job will be at risk of getting fired. Charities, as institutions, will be at risk of being deregistered if they talk about politics. The third law to consider is the proposed bill that would make it legal for intelligence officials to interrogate journalists without a warrant. The fourth law is the Border Force Act. Now, the Border Force Act makes it illegal for journalists to receive information from immigration detention. If officials share information with journalists, they are liable to be put in prison for 2 years. If journalists publish the information they receive, they are also liable to be put in prison for 2 years. Now, immigration is an election-shaping issue. In various federal elections, immigration has been the turning point. So to ban journalists from talking about it and to threaten imprisonment threatens the very heart of discussion surrounding federal national elections. This is one of the most anti-democratic laws that exist in our country, and it threatens the very heart of our democracy, the ability to talk about issues that come up at federal elections and to have public press and attention brought to those issues. Every 4 years, we send politicians to Canberra to pass laws on our behalf. If they stop us from speaking, however, then whose laws are they passing exactly? In my experience, the silencing of public servants has led to the growth of corporate power over our government. Far from being a government of the people, by the people, for the people, our government is transitioning to a government of the corporation, by the corporation, for the corporation. When the government silences charities, public servants, and tries to silence journalists, it moves away from being a representative democracy altogether. If we do not defend each incursion on our rights, we will one day wake up to an Australia we no longer recognise, an Australia that has failed to conserve our basic legal freedoms.